I don't know if you've heard from Hector or Joseph so far this week. As of the end of last week, Hector was telling me that the permit will be issued by the end of this week. So I guess we're waiting.
Yeah, I heard the same thing, that they essentially were all signing it, and what was there? They had some final hesitation, kind of questioning whether we should begin the demonstration with school, with the unknown of school. But I think we need to get moving, right? See how it goes, get the whole process moving. I don't think we're going to know, right? We all keep thinking next week we'll have all the final information with this whole COVID thing, but I don't think it's going to happen. Yeah. It just seems to be ongoing, unfortunately, for a long time. So hopefully if we do 6 months now, I mean, we were talking about the middle of November at this point, right? So
yeah, so we you know, both for Greg and for everyone on the call, we did order the materials from Spain. So they're on the way because they take a max of, you know, 40 to 45 days to get over here. So those materials should be here by the end of October, early November. And so our new proposed dates are November 9th to the 18th. And, you know, that is, as long as we can get confirmation that the materials ship out on Friday from the port when they're supposed to, I think that we can be pretty confident in those dates. So basically, right when we get the permit from Caltrans, I think we can start publicly announcing that, which we should be getting this week. I think it was just a matter of like sending it around, getting all the signatures. Everyone's working from home. So I think that's where they're at with that. And
so that would put us, just to clarify too, right? If we start middle of November,
yeah,
6 months out will take us to the middle of May for a 6-month permit. And hopefully schools will be in regular session by then. If they're not, I mean, the end of school locally is, what is it, the middle of June, I think, right? So it's only another month of an extension to go middle of June. Some people might like to see, hopefully, July fireworks will be back. I mean, I think that's the highest use as far as parking and all that on that Maricopa section there. So that would be another thing to push for, is, you know, July 4th. And then the summer's relatively quiet there, and then we're back into fall session. So all those things become incremental, but at least now it'd be middle of November to middle of May, part of the initial permit.
Right. Yep. So yeah, I mean, things are moving. We're ready to, as soon as we get the permit, we're ready to just, you know, really ramp up and get going. Getting the materials ordered from Spain was a big, you know, to-do item. So we're glad that we got that ready to go. So
that's bigger than expected, right? We thought we're trying to get a pallet count for the unloading, and it's something like 20 pallets of material.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be a lot. And so yeah, that is Kathy. I think you might have joined late. Basically, the updates are we should be getting the permit this week from Caltrans, and we ordered the materials from Spain, and we're now looking at, you know, middle of November starting the build, as early as possibly November 9th. But we want to make sure that we have the permit in hand before we publicly announce the dates.
Okay.
But getting the materials ordered was a big deal. We also have not heard any, you know, we think we're past all of the hurdles with the permitting. So Hector had told us this week is a realistic time to have it in our hand. So
well, the trip was Veterans Day is November 11th, right? So if we are we're able to start that week, we'd have Veterans Day in the middle of the week. That's, you know, whatever, plus or minus. That's a holiday that the city considers a holiday. We take it off. And, so it's an official city holiday, but a lot of companies don't. So it's, I would guess roughly half or something is my experience. I don't know about everybody else, but that means that traffic company that's supposed to step in first and do all the striping, and they drill the holes for all of the planters. The planters and the armadillos too, are they drilling? Yeah. So they drill it, and then we anchor it, right? We have to use the tool and put the anchors in. So we
so If we were, if we were to still start on the 9th, and let's say that Crisco, you know, even if Crisco in the city doesn't work on Veterans Day, we could still be out there working on the conflict zones, because they've, Crisco said that the striping will probably only take them like a day or a day and a half. So there's a chance if we start on the 9th, they could have the striping done. You know, we would need the striping in order to be able to accurately do the conflict zones. So there's still work that could be done on Veterans Day. But we can talk about whether we think it might be just efficient to start it, you know, after. I'm not sure, but regardless, it'll be earliest November 9th.
Maybe that would work out in a way. You're saying that if we went with that week, we might have the striping done and all the holes done through Wednesday if we honor the holiday, and then on Thursday, Friday, we anchor the planters and we do the supplemental work, because the striping company, the traffic company is doing striping, signage, and wasn't there another feature as well? And then drilling, I guess those are the three.
Yeah, well, and they're removing the conflicting striping as well, but that, I mean, that will be done on the first day when they start the new striping. So the primary volunteer effort would be assisting with the planters, right? That's a big one. Roughly 80 planters, right? Yeah.
Anchor, put the planting soil in and put the plants in. That's a big one.
Yeah, and you know, if volunteers want to paint with us as well, we will probably need help with the conflict zones. So basically, it's like as soon as we get the permit and are able to solidify the build dates, we'll have a better idea of the volunteer days as well, and then we can more specifically recruit volunteers for specific tasks, and be able to say, you know, on this day we're going to do conflict zones, on this day we'll be planting, so if you'd rather plant, come on this day, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I don't know, Kathy, if you I don't think there's anything that you really needed to be doing, but if you have updates on plants.
No, I just had, I mean, I've kind of been, you know, I had worked with the nursery. We made some selections, which now, because of now it's, you know, we're starting late fall, going through the winter. I'm having to make some adjustments, but I'm working on that.
Okay.
But my question right now is, and I'll just stay in touch with you. Do we have a staging area for any of the materials for the planters, meaning the plants, the soil, the gravel, the landscape fabric? Do we have a staging area approved with the school district at Nordhoff?
So we're not using the Nordhoff parking lot at all anymore. Yeah, so the process to do that was going to be, you know, outside of the project budget, and it was most likely going to delay the permit even further.
Okay.
Have the property appraisal done and all of that. We so the buffered and hashed areas that are at the meadows, you know, so the spaces that used to be parking that are now striped, we're definitely thinking that can be lay space.
Okay.
And you know, if anything, we will just be coordinating with the city on more frequent, you know, busing of materials. How we've typically done things in the past too is, you know, you load stuff up on a truck, the truck drives very slowly, people just take stuff off the truck and dump it. Yeah. And so I guess we'll have to think a little bit through how we would do that with soil. I don't know if it's dividing it up into smaller buckets to deploy in places.
That part we can figure that out. I guess what I'm concerned about is when we set up the deliveries for the bulk of everything, like all the plants, we had talked about taking them to the public works yard if we got them there a little early, depending on when we get the delivery date, and or does it get delivered right to the job site?
Right.
And if so, where do they get to unload? And the same thing for the bulk soil.
Yeah.
Which we're still, you know, is in flux, but nevertheless, where does that get dumped?
Right. Yeah.
We can move it around if, you know, if we have like some small pickup trucks or whatever. And
yeah.
that'll be easy. We can I can pre-calculate how much to drop off at each station, and that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah, that's the initial delivery is, I think, what we'll just have to work out.
Okay.
I think it's probably most efficient to have it delivered right to the site, but
Me too.
we're gonna have to figure out where exactly that is. Maybe it is in one of those buffered parking areas, and we make sure to leave one of those free and open. You know, because they're pretty big. I think the striped areas, it used to fit like, you know, 6 to 7 cars, because I can see from Google Street, you know, aerial when it used to be parking, and it's a pretty sizable area. So I think that we might just have to do that and make it work. I don't envision by the time we get to planting, we're not going to have any other, like, ideally everything should already be bolted, right? So we won't need lay space for the actual planters and armadillos. So there shouldn't be a lot of other materials that we need lay space for by the time we get to the planting. So hopefully this free space we can use for the actual delivery and drop off.
Okay, so can we assist? I mean, for sure our crew can assist with all that, right? We'll have, I don't know, do you foresee us mixing soil, sand, and mulch or something into the mix or not?
Well, I'll tell you what, this is my opinion. I know you have that soil at the Public Works Yard.
Mm-hmm.
That came from Topa Mountain Winery.
Right.
Correct. So I happen to have worked on that project, and I know a lot of that it's not all topsoil, and there was some drainage issues. It's more of a heavier clay soil,
Mm-hmm.
which is what you do not want to use in a container. So I still have the option, and I had already contacted Agrimin down in Camarillo, and they gave me a form where they may potentially donate it and or give me a discount beyond. I mean, the city could order it, or however you want to order it, or I could do it and get a contractor's discount on it. But maybe, you know, I'll end up getting it donated. But as I have mentioned earlier, the manufacturer of the container, and having done containerized planting, you want to have a really good, loose, well-drained planting medium. And so my suggestion is to not use that clay soil.
Not use it, okay. I didn't know if we could condition it by adding sands or mulch or something like that, but it's not worth it. We should just get new.
Well, yeah, I think it'd be worth it to just get it pre-mixed per the specifications of the planter manufacturer. And we use that because then it works compatibly with their irrigation, built-in irrigation system that they have. You know, you fill it up and it wicks. So it's all going to work. We want it to work. We don't want to have standing water, and we don't want the plants to rot if they're in a heavy clay soil.
Do you think that Agrimin would donate whatever it might be? I don't know what the quantities are. If it's a few truckloads.
Yeah, I know originally we had 9 yards. Now it's going to be less. And I'm sorry, I am a little behind. I had been swamped with work and had some other things I've had to take care of.
Fair enough.
But I stubbed my nose. I will not.
But if it's so 10 yards sounds like a medium-sized dump truck.
Oh, it'll be less than 9 yards now because we have less containers. Originally, we had more planters, and you've minimized that from, what was it, 80 to a 74, 72. I can't remember. I've got it in my
notes. 72 currently. It was
72. So we have less. So we're going to need less cubic yards, and basically they would just come, dump the whole thing, and then ideally, when it comes to the day of planting, we just, I'll calculate like we need how many scoops per container, and we can just drop them off, and, you know, per planter, et cetera, et cetera. But to me, that's the most streamlined, I believe, most efficient, and I believe the most effective way, because we want it to work. And you know, unless you wanted to go with the soil, the clay soil, and then we ask for a specified mix and a ratio based on using that clay soil.
No, I wasn't putting.
I go for the pre-mix. I've already talked to Agrimin, and I've done. Oh, my battery's going low. Hopefully, I'm not going to log out here. I'm going to go grab my plug it in.
I guess that would go back to be a pile dumped, and then how do we get them logistically from the pile to the planter? You know, we could have a pickup truck loaded, and then we have individuals hopefully enough volunteers that we all are
Right.
pulling up directly to the planter, right, and trying to kick it
Yeah.
into the planter. Is that what you're envisioning?
It could be like a truck and then volunteers, it just driving really slowly and volunteers follow behind and like shovel the soil directly into each planter as it's being driven, so that we're not like dividing up, or, you know, or it's just getting the soil in a truck to the site and then putting it in several wheelbarrows and like kind of dividing that up, and maybe then the wheelbarrows are wheeled to different sections along the project.
The majority of the planters are all in the stretch from Church to El Roblar, right?
Yeah, yeah, there's, I believe there's a block where they're not at all, you know, from Pyre to Church, but actually, you know what? That you might be right.
The majority, I think there's a few down below, so mostly Church to El Roblar. So really, maybe that would be the thing, is if we have one pile, we were talking about just getting it into planters, Kathy. So we would have a large pile, and we can use like our backhoe's got a bucket on it. We can kick it up into a dump truck, and then a dump truck, probably it's about the right height, you know, I mean, a pickup truck with a gate down, and we can just that, you know, kick it right in there. And so the volunteers, everybody can be pushing it into each planter and driving up to the next one and loading it whatever height you are recommending for the amount of soil, right? It's going to go in kind of loose and densify a little bit when it gets water and all that.
Right. You know what? And this is what I'm proposing too, and I don't mind doing this, that, yeah, maybe we just have a laminated one piece of paper that just tells we need this amount of, you know, how to plant it, this amount of soil, fill it this high. And I'm already going to have the plants all pre-organized. So when we have our staging area, we know that there's a little map, these three plants go in this planter, and it's all laid. It makes it easy, and somebody can just drop it off, and it'll be streamlined. So there won't be any confusion.
A good point you're saying for the plants. We're going to have all of the plants staged there in the same location as the soil, right? So we'll
that's what I'm hoping.
Driving up and scooping up a hole in the soil and planting it and so on, right?
Yeah. Now the other thing that is involved too is, for the manufacturer, there's a layer of filter fabric, and then there's gravel, and then there might be another filter. I can't remember what the filter fabric's after, but anyway, we have that information. So we just want to make sure they're installed correctly. It's not a big deal, but we should just have all that information in a little notebook or something, and I'm happy to be there and help organize, strategize. I've done this for other projects before, so it should go pretty soon.
Yeah.
Something, Dana, do you have a section or a little, you know, sketch of what that looks like? So
yeah.
So someone's buying the filter fabric and the gravel, and we're going to make sure that's out there.
It's all going to be there before we actually, I mean, it could be coming the morning of or the day, ideally the day before, but I don't know if you want to leave all the plants out on the highway now that we're not going to be able to use the school parking lot. So ideally, if I can get the delivery, I can't always tell them, hey, I want it at this time. You know, I have to work it out with the nursery schedule. And they usually give me like a 2-hour window, and then I have the driver call me a half an hour before they get there. And then, you know, I've got to meet the driver, and we have to help offload the truck. But the plant material's, you know, not big, so we don't need equipment to offload it. So maybe we'll have some volunteers there to help us unload all the plant material.
Yeah.
Staging.
Sounds like that's the major. Is that what you're thinking, Dana? Is it, I don't know how many volunteers we expect, but it'd be planting, putting the soil on the plants and filter fabric and all that. Taking care of the planters is one big one. And then anchoring all of the planters beforehand, as well as anchoring armadillos, kind of secondary, because the planters sound like the bigger effort. And then, and you're saying painting the conflict zones, and that, so everybody knows the conflict zones is that green bike lane. When it conflicts with driveways, there's dashed sections of green across the bike lane. So that'll be people kind of taping that out and painting green over that as well, right? Those are a couple of big efforts.
Yeah, so the anchoring of the planters and the armadillos, obviously need to happen before the planting. And that's, you know, we've been talking about the city doing that. I think volunteers could probably help, but I think we will need city labor and equipment out there. But the holes will be drilled. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, if I guess, you know, we could also have volunteers help with the anchoring. I think it would have to be a little bit more led by the city, or just like, you know, have a little bit more supervision. But definitely the planting of the planters is a volunteer task. And so when I say planting of the planters, I mean everything from the filter fabric,
The gravel,
the
the
plants.
soil. Yeah.
And, you know, the city, don't forget, we'll have to fill the planters, all the planters first with water, right? So you have to fill that reservoir, and then that's when the filter fabric and gravel goes in. So Greg, that's what, you know, next week when Fred and Miguel join us, we can talk through really in detail, kind of like the sequence of events that the city will have to help with. And hopefully by then we will actually be able to have like a calendar with the dates that all of this will be happening, because we'll have the permit.
Okay.
So really hoping for
But
that.
it does sound like it's either the Veterans Day week, which was what, the week of the 9th, or possibly the week after the 16th. It looks like it's lining up for that. All the materials are on their way from Spain and all that, all these planners and stuff. And so that's come together. That appears to be the highly likely dates we're
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ray, you said that you had a couple questions.
Yes, I do. Thanks. One is, these aren't as detailed questions. One is, do you know when, I guess this is a question for Greg, do you know when Christmas vacation dates are in December if school is back in session? Kids are not there.
Yeah, I was just looking at the calendar the other day. It was kind of, I believe they're off right around the 21st or so, that week, you know. And what are you thinking there, Ray?
Oh, I'm just thinking about the demonstration actually getting used. And if schools are open and then the kids leave, or the schools are still shut and then we run into, then there's Christmas. And I'm kind of unclear about, I get we can get an extension on the permit, and are the dates fixed? Like, I'm just really wanting the demonstration to have, you know, full use so we get the data we want. I know we all want that. And are we rushing it because of the dates of the permit, or because things being shipped to us? You know, what are the ramifications if we can delay? Are we able to delay? Things like that.
And I think it is true, if we decide to just wait until school is in full session again, at this point, I think we're all saying, how long is that going to be? Is it going to be spring or late spring, or
Be the next year. Yeah.
or is it going to be in the fall? So I think there are certain deadlines with all these grants that we have to keep moving. So I think our approach is to get the demonstration installed so we understand how it's working. And then it is, the school is important, but we should keep in mind that it's a 12-minute crunch in the morning and 12 minutes in the afternoon. That's the two peaks.
Yeah.
So it's important, but I think a lot of it's going to be just people driving it and understanding how it feels as well. And you can kind of imagine that issue that occurs when people stack it church road.
I was unclear of the flexibility in terms of timing.
But I think that Caltrans is working with us. They'll extend the permit. It'll be a bit of a process like everything with Caltrans. There's no easy out with Caltrans. So I think we fully anticipate that we would be extending this, you know, if it's, hopefully school's in full session in the spring and we see how it's working. And then we might extend it even to get that July 4th over the hump with that, so everybody sees it.
Yeah.
And some people even mentioned graduation. You know, I was there for the past couple of graduations, not as a spectator, but more to look at the traffic, you know, to see what was going on.
Right.
And it's a little tricky. A lot of people are remembering back in the 90s when the school had twice the attendance it has now. The parking lots, even during graduation and the football games, is not even half full anymore. It's not like it used to be in the 90s, I understand. So we're not seeing that, but still, everybody, it's great to test it to kind of display and demonstrate what it's really like.
Okay. Yeah, and there's a possibility of hybrid too, where the kids are, both at school and still online.
Right.
And then the Rotary has begun their movie nights there as well. So they had like 134 cars there in the parking lot, and I think they have.
How did that look? I didn't see that. Was it is 134 with the screen? Is it crowded, or they're spacing all the cars too, right?
They're spacing. Well, we were pretty close together, but everyone stayed in their cars except for me because I rode my bike, got a front row seat. And so they're continuing that because they're having another one coming up. And it was really a successful fundraiser for the family fund for the school district.
That's a good one to check out for us. I mean, it wouldn't be well, you never know. Like all these things from COVID that we're doing, some will stick, right? So maybe that's a lot of fun and they continue doing something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. My other question is, are we completely shutting down the road while the build is going on?
No, we're only shutting down the lane in which the demonstration is going to be built. So the innermost travel lanes will remain open during implementation. There will be a speed, it's going to be a speed zone. A work zone speed reduction. There will be that in place, but there will still be travel lane open.
And Randy, give me a quick picture of what that looks like. Is this, contractor that has a special license for traffic control, which is more important on these Caltrans type roads, you can imagine. So they have a very particular procedure they go through where they'll shut down they'll leave the one, they call it lane 1, right, the closest to the median, open. And they'll shut off right along that dash line. They'll have cones they'll set out and they'll shut off the rest of it. So we'll have lane 2, or the right lane, plus the shoulder, protected with a bunch of cones and protections from the barricade company. And then that work will start proceeding behind there, fully protected.
So if we're using machinery with a bucket, that's going to be crossing back and forth across the road, and then traffic control will just stop the traffic as that's going over to move or fill planters.
Our intention was, because Kathy has calculated out, and it's roughly 9 or 10 cubic yards, and that's about one medium-sized truck. So it'll be dumped in one area, in that pull-out area by the meadows, and
Right.
And then we'll load that into the pickup trucks. Probably have the backhoe off behind this protected area, pick it up, dump it in the dump truck, in the pickup truck. Maybe we have a couple volunteer groups working separately, or even 3. And then the pickup truck would stay behind barricade, but obviously when they have to get to the other side, if we do it all on the meadow side, to cross the intersection, they'll have to follow regular traffic rules. They can get out into the flow of traffic and use the U-turn at church and that kind of thing.
Okay, got it. I didn't know we were using pickup trucks. So from the pickup trucks, the material will be offloaded into the planters. Is that what I'm hearing?
An easy approach,
We're not I think we're gonna try to minimize as much as possible doing anything. All work is supposed to happen behind the traffic control equipment. So the pickup truck will drive, we're gonna have to stay out of the open travel lane as much as possible. We can't have stuff like crossing mid-block and that sort of thing. So yeah, that will probably be a part of the traffic control stipulations of the permit also.
And my last question is regarding the planters. When those are watered, does water come out of the bottom, or is it all stay in the planter?
So there's
their drainage, or I'm thinking about water flowing onto the bike lane and causing it to be, because as a bike rider, I'm really careful when there's slick spots.
Yeah, I don't think that, so there's gonna be the buffer between the planters and the bike lane anyway. So remember, the planters are only going in the parking lane, and then there's a buffer and then the bike lane. So I suppose if there is any sort of drainage, I don't think it's gonna be a lot. Like the planters are relatively, they're not huge planters. So even if there's any drainage, I doubt that it will be a significant impact on the bike lane. I would imagine there is drainage. I know that the planters have the water reservoir, but I think there's also a couple of holes for water to seep out.
Yeah, so yeah, I was just gonna say, basically there's a reservoir
Yeah,
built into the planter and you fill it up, and the water essentially is like wicking into the soil.
yeah,
So it's kind of self-regulating, but in the event that, let's just say there was a deluge of rain,
mhm,
then, any extra water come out, but most likely you're probably not going to have any water draining out.
right.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I guess that goes back to that planter section. So we're still a ways out, month and a half, but that planter section would be nice to see. I think what Ray's getting to is, it sounds like the reservoirs at the bottom and maybe gravel above that with filter fabric. I'm not sure if it goes above below.
Right.
I haven't seen that section either. It'd be nice to see it.
The manufacturer provided that. Dana, I don't know if you want to send that out to Greg again. I know I have a copy of all the PDFs. So basically it has a cross section of shows you like what the planter's like, and it tells you how to layer the gravel, the filter fabric, and the soil. And it also has the specifications for a soil mix, which we can slightly alter, but I've already, like I said, contacted Agrimin, shared the mix, and they said, oh, we can do something really comparable, or this is what we suggest. I did get a price on it already. I do know we're going to need less than what I originally asked, and they just need to know information like when you want it delivered, etc. So I haven't pursued it too much further than doing all that initial legwork. But it sounds like, we're getting close and we can figure out the staging, because really the only two big deliveries are going to be the plant delivery, meaning volume wise, and then the soil, which is probably going to be about, I'm just throwing this out there, but I'm going to say about 7 cubic yards rather than 9. Maybe it's going to be 8, but it's not going to be more than 8 cubic yards of soil.
Okay. Yeah, I still need, I have to follow back up with Ojai Lumber for the gravel.
Okay, yeah, and I need to give you those numbers. I know I haven't given it to you. The revised numbers, I gave you the original ones for 80, and now we have less planters.
Right.
Did we land on a plant selection yet? I know there was some concern because we were going to order them and then, they weren't available. There's been a delay.
We actually had an initial plant selection because initially we were going to do the project starting in June, then it moved to July, and then August, September, October. Now we're in November. So the plant material we initially selected was going to look great for like a summer, early fall project. Now, and the nursery was going to donate some items, some plant material. So what I'm rethinking right now is a lot of times some of these plants don't look their best during the winter, and we want it to look good all year. So I'm coming up with an alternate plan, but basically there'll be 3 different plants per planter. And I think the easiest thing to do is, have groupings. In other words, maybe we have 3 different options for divided by 72. So anyway, and they're going to be, essentially low water use, but look good and low maintenance. And it's just to get us through the duration of the project. Potentially, they may be able to be reused for some city plantings, whether it's in the park or, bioswales or rain gardens somewhere else. Ideally, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
We, because we're now doing the plantings in November, you're re-looking at which plants we're going to use. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, and a lot of times, to be honest, when I do a plant order, so they usually don't ship you what you call retail grade. So the plants that the wholesale growers send to a retail nursery are like their prime cream of the crop. They're like, things are, full, they're in bloom. So I'm trying to specify to them, can I get retail quality with the order? And some plants go semi-dormant or during, the winter, et cetera. So I'm trying to avoid that. And the other thing that I have to consider now is we often get a frost starting somewhere mid to third week of November, potentially, through March.
Yeah.
So that kind of changes the plant selection also. So that's why I'm kind of revising. Hopefully they'll work with me on donating possibly something else in the original lantana. Anyway, that's where I'm at.
So I was just trying to find Zika, because I've seen that cut sheet from Zika that shows the container size and all that, but I haven't really seen a cut sheet that shows how the gravel stacks and how the water reservoir and all that, or not that I recall anyways, maybe. So that would be nice to circulate, just so we all know what we're basically planning and what we're sticking in the container.
Yeah, I can send it to you. It was a document that was in draft. They had drafted it. It's not like a publicly available document, but I'll send it to everybody just so you can see the actual how they recommend doing the planting.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and like I said earlier, ideally, they figured it out how it's going to function successfully. So to the best that we can, I recommend we don't have to do it 100% perfect, but pretty darn close to what it's doing, so that it functions and the plants are, thrive and it works.
Yeah.
So
cool.
yeah, they've done the legwork for us, essentially.
And I guess we have to refill that reservoir periodically, depending on the season and all that too. It sounds like there might be like a filler hose or something like that you connect to, which should be a better thing instead of just dumping water on top. But
yeah, it's almost like a plug, where you put in a hose, so to speak, and you fill it up, and it lasts for, I believe I don't have it with open right now. I'm not looking at it, but I do believe when I read it, it kind of gives you a tentative schedule as to how often you need to refill, which will be important too. But for the most part, it's going to be cooler this time of year, and it's going to be shadier because of all those big ukes out there. So potentially you may not have to be watering or filling them as frequently as you would have had during the summer and early fall because of that.
so Dan, sounds like we're getting close enough. We're all thinking carefully about how we're doing this, which might be more than some want to hear, but others do want to hear. So, because it'd be nice I think you were talking about having a schedule of what we're doing each day, and then what the details are. Because, this core group, hopefully everybody can help rally up anybody and relatives and everybody else and try to get some support, because it'd be probably a couple-day major effort. Sounds like a couple might be underestimated, but 2 to 4 day volunteer effort, right, to get this done.
Yeah, I think by the next CAC meeting, I can have that schedule and we can really dive into the implementation and the volunteer tasks, and we can start talking about all the really detailed logistics of the deliveries and that sort of thing. And I think probably we should be ready to have that conversation by then.
And of course, we'll have to look at the COVID restrictions too, and how we gather and group and separate everybody. Obviously there'll be, it's outdoors, which is ideal, but we want to be very careful and respectful of the health mandates, and so that would probably involve anybody working separately would not have to wear a mask, but anybody within a certain number of feet of anybody else would be wearing a mask, and so on. And, so we'll have to do the latest. I think we're still in you're probably even used to it, Dana, but it's California's still in purple zone. So purple, the worst it gets, and I think they just announced San Luis Obispo County went to red, which is
I just saw that too. They did go to red.
Yeah, so we're hoping to go red. Sounds worse to me, but anyways. But hopefully go red on them. Each one of these have certain variations to it, but I think overall we're just going to be great that it's outside, and be very careful if anybody are working together. We're planting and all that. So masks ask outside are fairly ideal, right? And,
Yeah.
and of course, that we'll have things like water and food and stuff like that to help keep everybody working hard. So,
Okay, guys. Well, yeah, I guess we'll talk again on October 7th. And yeah, I think, we should definitely have some more details to talk about then, and we'll keep you updated.
Right?
as far as the planning goes, I know Kathy and Ray were really involved in the planning, and John too. That's Kathy, Ray, and John. And I appreciate you've been attending. Were you more interested in a particular area? Because we can loop you into that as well, or any of the other people as far as, but I know John and Kathy were very involved in the planting approach.
So I was just going to ask about the volunteers. It sounds like you all are still strategizing how you're going to garner volunteers. Do you have on your website a place where people can click and sign up, or?
We will. Because we want to wait until we can really confidently publicly advertise the dates. And then, yeah, we'll create an online sign-up sheet that will have, the exact day and date and time slots for people to sign up for the various tasks. And so that's a really easy way for us to organize the volunteers, see how many we have, how we might divide them up. And so we will definitely share that link with you all to share with friends as well, and then also to sign up. But yeah, that will be on the website, and that will be the primary, last phase of outreach, is sending that link around, getting people to sign up, and all of that. So that should be coming really soon.
So we do plan to put that on our webpage. Actually, we're just looking at getting that on there, because we're about that point, so we'd have an online sign up area. We were just strategizing, separate that in categories, probably be a general list. So is that some area you think you could help us, Sylvia, is trying to rally up some folks?
Yeah, so I've been in discussion with a teacher and an aide who works at Nordoff. And, I know that right now they're doing, all of their sessions through Zoom. So it's been a little challenging for them. So, adding another element to all of their challenges, I think, is probably a little overwhelming right now. But come November, that might be a different story. I would hope at least they would have a better handle on everything. And then they can wrap their head around, adding this as another thing that they can rally up, maybe some students to get involved in this, which I think would be great.
It's true. The kids, are not in school. Like my daughter's in high school, and it starts at 8 and finishes at 1, I think, every day. She's in Ventura Unified High School District. But so maybe kids enjoy that, getting out and being helpful. That may be perfect. A bunch of high school kids with a bunch of energy, perfect to save my back.
And for their school.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Are you involved in the school, Sylvia? Do you know, or do you mostly know people there, or are you involved?
I'm not really too involved, but I just happen to know some of the teachers, and so I can just keep the discussions happening, keep them up to date on what's going on, keep their interest going, and just kind of keep it in the back of their minds as things move forward.
Yeah, there might even be like a kid. I know there's they don't call it PTA there, they call it there's another name, but it's essentially the parent group. But there's probably
PTO.
Parent teacher.
It's the PTO.
Okay, organization, parent teacher organization.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then, but also the student body has something too. It might be worth us, reaching out to them. Sylvia, to that might be more direct instead of going through the teachers that might have their own priorities and stuff. If we went out to them, usually there's like a group that is trying to rally up student involvement, and probably kind of limited to involvement right now.
I'm working on a couple projects where I've needed to use the OUSD electronic notification system, where it's sent out to the kids, and because I'm needing students for a couple projects. So those can get sent out, and then the teachers also make the invitation during the Zoom calls. So, also, there's the XR Youth here in town, you know, the Extinction Rebellion Youth, and some of the leaders in that are Nordhoff students.
Yeah.
And, you know, their whole focus is response to climate change, and this certainly is part of that. So the XR Youth are very active. There's probably 20 or 30 students involved with that.
I think that might be it, yeah.
And then Rotary also has the Rotary Interact, which is the student Rotary Club that's at Nordhoff as well.
Oh.
So those are groups that are on the high school campus and have their own, you know, PR and outreach that they do.
I believe, wasn't there an environmental club too at Nordhoff?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still active, but that was something else we might want to explore or reach out to.
We can, yeah, let's circle back on all of this stuff once we have the dates that we're publicly ready to announce, and I'll send you guys everything that people would need to sign up, and all the resources. So
Great.
we'll talk about that next time.
Pretty good if we're getting to this point. Yep. It was pretty easy, huh, Dana? Only took 8 months of permitting with Caltrans, right? So,
Yeah, it's been a pinch. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining. Sorry again for the lateness. But have a good rest of your week, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.